named Pokemon Ace 101 for a streaming attempt when he got a pretty decent run. His PB at the time was only a second slower than the Packle's 3516, so he was definitely good at the game. He was using a new trick called Create a Trick Broken Ass Game, or Cat Bag. This is how Cat Bag works. Cat Bag works in two ways. Created tricks can be written to multiple trick slots, so it's possible to assign one move to up, down, left, or right, grab, or flip. This is useful in the missions where the NPCs call out tricks, as one trick covers the whole list. The second useful thing is that because of the way the game detects specific tricks for gold, if you name the created trick the exact same name as another trick, the game can't tell the difference for gold detection. So instead of having to get Special Meter and perform a special move, you can do a quick flip trick and clear the gold. With this trick, Pokemon Ace would get a world record time of 35:04 on August 2nd, 2016.
There it is! It's done! It's done! Finally took world record, oh my god!
It may not look like that much time, but to help put this in perspective, Pokemon Ace did not get video skip in his run, which was a solid 15-second time save in the Packle's 3516. Silent Laws had never stopped running the game and had been in or around the top 3 since his world records in 2014. When Pokemon Ace got his 35:04, Silent's personal best was 35:23. A little less than 2 weeks later, Silent Laws would improve his time down to a 35:03, taking the world record by a second. It's worth noting that this run didn't have video skip in it either, and neither would any of the next few runs except for one. The next day, Silent Laws would clean up a few parts of his run and lower the time another 3 seconds to 34:58. Tricks can lower a time in runs, but execution of these tricks is where real optimization takes place. A couple weeks after Silent Law's 34:58, Pokemon Ace would take the record back with a 34:43 on September 3rd.
34:43. Oh, there's a palindrome. I'm so happy. I got world record back. I did it, Mom.
He was on pace with Silent Law's 34:58 for most of the early part of the run, but eventually pulled further and further away as the game progressed, eventually closing out 15 seconds over the previous time. Some might say Christmas came early for Pokemon Ace, as he would hold on to this record for a few more months. Speaking of Christmas, do you know what happened on actual Christmas Day 2016? The Packle would get a world record of 34:35, once again using video skip. Video skip on top of Cat Bag was enough to get the Packle the record, despite a few mistakes along the way.
Yeah, so I saw back like 3rd or 4th day back home. I was like, I'm playing Thug 1 again. And then like 3rd or 4th day back, I got world record. I'm like, it was on Christmas as well. So it kind of rubs salt in the wounds.
This world record would be short-lived, as Pokemon Ace would take the record back the very next day with the 34:16.
34:16. What? Oh, okay, that's way lower than I thought it was gonna be. Dude, sub 34 is freaking easy.
Pokemon Ace would save almost 30 seconds at the end of his run by getting video skip.
Yes! I fucking got it. Yeah, I got vid skip.
It was around this time that a more consistent method of getting it was found by Big Law, which instantly made the trick more accessible.
That's it. That's it! I fucking found how to do video skip consistently! I did it!
I don't know, Big Law just kind of stumbled upon this way of doing it, and he was just like, oh my god, I figured this out. And he just freed us all from, you know, the chains that video skip had on us for so long. And it really, you know, much like Cat Bag, even the playing field for people that couldn't do as many butt slaps, literally everybody, if they timed it right, could do video skip now.
And with the brief interruption on Christmas Day, Pokemon Ace was able to hold on to the world record for another 6 months. In June 2017, the Packle would take the world record back with the 34:05 on the 7th. A few days later, would lower it again to a 33:51 on the 11th. Both of these runs utilize all of the tricks mentioned previously, along with better execution and combo refinement. They would not be easily beaten, but they would be beaten. A relatively new runner named Rushi was running the game on November 20th, 2017. At the start of 2017, he had a 39-17. By the time October rolled around, he had a 33-59, which was just 8 seconds off world record. Earlier, he mentioned that by doing the Moscow spine glitch a certain way, you could get away with only doing some of them. As it turns out, if you do a butt slap 720, then a butt slap 900, and then a 360, the game counts this as having done 11 spins, despite only having done 6.
Basically, there's a mission in Moscow where you have to do a certain amount of spins over a communication tower. And the amount of spins you have to do, it's like a certain amount of 360s. So you would assume that like a 360 spin would be 1, and a 720 spin would be 2, and then carry on with it.
Right.
But actually, it's kind of messed up. If you do the same amount of spins in a combo, for some reason the counter like messes up. So if you do like a 720, a 900, and a 360, that should count as like 4 spins or something like that, or like 5 or 6, but it actually counts as 10.
Using this trick, and by playing really well, Rushi was able to take the world record with a time of 33:40. Rushi had improved fairly quickly at the game, and would lower his time in May of 2018, down to a 33:35 on May 20th, and 33:16 on May 26th.
There's people much better than me at skill, but I think consistency is really the main thing. I'm a level above the other Type 1 runners on, really.
Okay.
And I put in a lot of practice to IL runs as well, so like running levels over and over, just to really ingrain my knowledge of them and get a feel for the places where you can make mistakes and, you know, how to avoid them. So I think that is the biggest thing I can attribute my success to, is just practicing over and over again and getting consistent as I can.
The runs by this point are optimized. Rushi is really good at execution, and that is where the record stands today. Tony Hawk's Underground has the most players of any Tony Hawk speed game, with beginner any percent being the series' most popular category. Thug 1 also has the most full game runs, almost twice as many as the next most popular game in the series, Thug 2. Tony Hawk may not be the game that comes to people's minds when they hear speedrun. It's not a charming 3D platformer whose graphics have stood the test of time. The game feels clunky at times, and the dialogue seems laughable at others. Having said all that, this is a really fun run to watch. The community who have molded and shaped this game has done so through love for it. It's a pretty well optimized game that requires a fair bit of skill. This is not a speedrun that is a glorified glitch showcase, but it doesn't have to be a quality speed game. Fable is an RPG created by Lionhead Studios and published by Microsoft for the original Xbox. Fable is the story of a young boy who becomes a hero and sets off on an adventure to find his family. The central theme in Fable and its sequel is that actions have consequences, and that the player's choice affects the world around them. Peter Molyneux, the game's head designer, is notorious for promising more than his games end up delivering.
You know, even a 15-year-old kid can buy into and then he started doing this strange thing. He then took the girl's father, who was very rich, and killed him. Then he went back to his house where his wife lived and killed her. And of course it dawned on me that he'd realised that when the mayor died, all his money would be left to his daughter. And when she died, all her money would be left.
Despite this, the game released to be a critical and commercial success, and is regarded as one of the best titles to be released on the original Xbox. Fable served as a baseline for a series that would go on to spawn several sequels and spin-off titles. On September 20th, 2005, about a year after the first game's initial release, an expanded version was released called Fable: The Lost Chapter for Xbox, PC, and Mac. It featured additional content, an unreleased epilogue, a new playable region, and a new ending to the story. In the 13 years that followed, a small group of gamers have transformed Fable The Lost Chapters from an epic adventure to an 80-minute sprint. This is the story of Fable The Lost Chapters in speedrunning history. Before we dive in, let's cover a few basics. In Fable, the player controls a young boy who is recruited by the renowned Heroes Guild after his village and family are attacked and taken away from him. After training in combat and magic, the hero sets out on an adventure. He soon gets caught up in a fight of good and evil, with the fate of the world hanging in the balance. The game's main mechanic is a karma alignment system, where the player's actions have good or bad karma associated with them. The choices you make in the game will shape the world around you, as well as yourself. Commit good deeds and the people in town will love and respect you. Commit bad deeds, however, and they will run in fear, and an aura of death will appear around you. While this mechanic doesn't affect the speedrun too much, it's an important detail that this video will mention from time to time. Another important mechanic is the combat multiplier. By consistently hitting opponents and doing damage, while avoiding damage yourself, you keep a fight combo going that increases the amount of experience you get from all sources. If you run out of targets to hit, the combat multiplier will start to decrease until you either hit another enemy or it runs out entirely. The hero can train and grow in three separate fields: strength, skill, and will. Strength is the field of physical strength and determines melee damage dealt and taken, as well as overall health. Skill is the field of agility and dexterity, and determines attack speed, bow efficiency, and stealth. Finally, will is the field of magic, filled with a variety of unique spells for combos. These skills can be upgraded using experience points in the Heroes Guild. From the Heroes Guild, the hero also takes on quests from the map room, which is how the main story progresses. The main category ran for Fable The Lost Chapters is any percent, where players try to beat the game by any means necessary as fast as possible. While there are a few other categories for this game, we will not be focusing on them. The earliest information about Fable speedruns comes from forum posts on Speed Demos Archive. A user by the name of Dizidus Dazidus comes forward with a 2-hour and 16-minute run, according to the in-game timer. While this run was better than the claims of several hours, it is essentially a fast and casual playthrough and doesn't resemble much of the speedruns that will follow. On August 12, 2005, another user, Shriek, posts a video of himself beating the game in 1 hour and 51 minutes. The route that Shriek uses has the distinction of being both unique and unorthodox. This run could likely be considered one of the first modern speedruns, albeit an unoptimized one. One of the biggest optimizations in Shriek's run versus Dizidus Dazidus' run is the inclusion of rolling. Using conventional wisdom, Dizidus Dazidus thought the fastest way to move throughout the game was by sprinting. Instead, Shriek rolls repeatedly, which overall saves time. Shriek uses the spell Inflame throughout the run. This saves time because Inflame does a flat damage regardless of other stats. Shriek is also able to skip the Heroes Guild training at the beginning of the game. When you are taken to the Heroes Guild for the first time, you will normally have to work through the tedious training sessions. However, if you attack the Guildmaster at the right time, the Guildmaster will tell you to stop, which ends the training session and allows you to move on. Overall, the training skips save lives. While this is one of the first modern runs and introduces many tricks and optimizations, it is not without its quirks. With some fortunate RNG, Shriek comes across a wandering salesman who happens to be carrying a small stack of an item called a crunchy chick, which is a food item that gives you bad karma. Shriek backtracks to a previous map and visits the Greatwood Gorge Demon Door. This door's challenge requires a very evil hero or a very evil deed. Fortunately, Shriek happened to come across that salesman with something that will give you bad karma. Eating the stack of chicks in front of the door, he gains access to its contents, a legendary weapon called Willow's Pickhammer. Shriek then uses this weapon for the remainder of the run, sticking to melee attacks and the spell Inflame for most of the run's combat sections. Willow's Pickhammer is a fairly good weapon for the middle of the game, because to buy a weapon of similar value would cost several thousand gold. Shriek is able to obtain the Pickhammer for just the cost of a stack of crunchy chicks, which is a few hundred gold. And while the weapon served him well throughout most of the run, it eventually lost its potency towards the end, which cost him some time. These two runs came relatively quick after one another, and while there are still plenty of optimization to be had in Shriek's run, people simply weren't running this game at the time. For these reasons and more, his run would stand uncontested for the next 5 years. At the time that Shriek had submitted his run, Fable the Lost Chapters had yet to be released. All future runs covered in this video will be on Fable the Lost Chapters. Around 2010, there was a renewed interest in the game and its speedrunning potential. As the re-release of Fable had added new content to the game, there was potential for the speedrunning community to be revitalized. On February 8, 2010, David Arnold, aka Bpop100, submitted a 1-hour 37-minute run to Speed Demos Archive. Even though Fable the Lost Chapters added new content and several quests to the game, Bpop100 still managed to beat Shriek's 151. In Shriek's run, he knew that sprinting wasn't the fastest way to move throughout the game. He was able to improve on Dizidus Dazidus' run by simply rolling from place to place. However, Bpop was able to take it one step further. In between his rolls, Bpop used the Assassin Rush spell, which is a forward-moving dash that has the ability to snap you behind a target's back. Performing a roll between Assassin Rushes takes just enough time for the Rush spell's cooldown to wear off, allowing for constant Assassin Rush to roll movement. This technique, referred to as rush rolling, is a fast and effective movement tech. Implementing rush rolling would have been enough for Bpop to beat Shriek's run, but Bpop didn't stop there. There was a new exploit introduced to Fable TLC called the Buy-Sell glitch, which allows you to get substantially more gold than the game expects you to have. To put it simply, the game is a mechanic where shops will sell items for a discount if they have a lot of that item in stock. Consequently, shops will buy goods from you for a premium if they are out of stock themselves. By buying all of the trader's goods for cheap and then selling it back to them for a profit, the calculations work out in the player's favor big time. By trading in high-priced gifts or even pricier food items, runners can amass tens or hundreds of thousands of gold in minutes. By using this glitch, Bpop buys an ebony longbow and obsidian greatsword. In the first 15 minutes, Bpop has a weapon more powerful than Willow's Pickhammer.